Look, being a teen in today's world, it certainly isn't easy. So today we're going to talk about that in the podcast. The world is just changing so fast, isn't it? And what was
Totally.
once certain and predictable is in a completely constant state of flux. The development period that's being a teenager is difficult in itself. It's an age of transition, isn't it? From being a child to becoming an adult. And so much change occurs on so many levels in just such a short period of time.
Yeah.
And as parents, we're definitely forced to let go, aren't we? And we just have to trust that our teenagers will make good choices and that the foundations that we've laid are solid enough for them to move safely into and onto adulthood, really.
Yeah. So for me as a psychotherapist, I've worked with teenagers over probably the last 10 years or more. And what I'm really noticing is that a lot of them are struggling with the transition from childhood to adulthood. Their bodies are changing. They're curious about gender, sex, drugs, all of the promises of adulthood. Hormones are surging, and with that surging hormones, it's hard to think. They're negotiating relationships with friends and family. They've got huge social pressures to work out who they are and what they want to be when they grow up. And I really feel after COVID, there's an increased anxiety about the future, and increased social anxiety, increased school refusal. A lot of kids are struggling. They're worried about what's the future world going to look like. And on top of this, they've got instant access to all kinds of information, accurate and inaccurate. And having a phone means that they're constantly accessible.
Yeah.
So they don't get a break from
no downtime, is there?
Oh, there's none. There's no just quiet time to daydream or to think, or they are accessible by their friends 24/7.
Yep.
And we didn't have that.
No.
I remember I would get home from school and no one could access me.
No.
I was in the backyard. I was playing with my brothers, still climbing trees, just able to do these things that actually helped me manage stress. Because, being a teenager is stressful.
Yes.
You have all these pressures of needing to, or feeling like you need to do well at school because your whole future relies on it. That's kind of what we're told as teenagers.
Yeah, which is horrible.
It is. And so the world kind of becomes really small.
Yes.
They have this social sphere at school, and if they don't belong or fit in, it can feel like the end of the world.
Yes.
It can feel very scary for a lot of them. Because kids are instantly connected and they can just get any information off the internet, it can mean that it's harder to reach them as a parent. And yet this is what they need, because even though they're instantly connected to friends, they are really struggling to form meaningful relationships or feel connected to anyone in a real way. I know I read some research recently, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure who it was, but they were talking about this loss of social skills that's happening really quickly with our kids, because just being in a lineup for the bus, when we were kids, you didn't have a device to look down to when you're uncomfortable. You actually looked at other people and you started conversing.
Yes.
Our teens don't have that anymore. They, as soon as they get anxious, they have this device that kind of soothes them. And it's almost become normal that it's okay to look at a device and ignore everyone around you.
I've noticed, if I ask my kids a difficult question or something that they don't want me to be asking them, something even simple as have you handed that assignment in, or have you got any homework due? Straight away it's like the phone, the head goes down and the phone's up. And it's almost like I'm not going to think about that or talk to you about that. I'm just going to look at my phone.
So really, really important as parents for us to understand what's going on for teenagers, and that a major process called differentiation is normal developmentally. And it's a process that involves your teen working out who they are and how they are unique and special in the world. So it's a process that requires them to do a lot of questioning, a lot of chewing things over, and a lot of spitting out what doesn't fit into their view of themselves. It's a healthy process. It's just really uncomfortable, especially for us as parents, because we go from being loved and you know how little kids think you're all right, to teenagers just absolutely pulling apart everything you do and finding all your faults. And this
Even breathing is annoying.
Totally.
Basically, I've been told,
Totally.
like, your breathing is annoying me.
Yeah, the way we move, the way we talk.
Yeah.
But this is a really important part of the process for them to work out who they are.
Interesting.
And it's also a really important process to ensure that they go out beyond the family to find a mate.
Right.
Yeah, so they kind of find fault in their parents, which is healthy. And then they kind of go out into the world to find a different gene pool.
Yes.
So to kind of nature again.
Yeah, that differentiation.
Yeah.
That's obviously where that terminology comes from to a degree.
Yeah. So the differentiation is working out, how am I different from my parents?
Yeah.
Who am I?
Yeah.
But it's also to ensure that they kind of go out and meet other people and don't fall in love with their parents, I guess. Yeah.
Huh.
So this means your teen needs to create distance between themselves and you. They are realising they're not the same as you. They're working out their own values, beliefs and dreams and how they want to be in the world. They also start to see you much clearer. They see your faults. They see how you hold yourself back. And this is painful.
Yes.
And it's painful on two levels. It's painful because it feels like you're losing connection with your child and losing any control or influence in their life, because they start to reject everything about you and start to make meaning from friends and media and other people that you may not value or value their opinion. So they kind of look beyond you for information and they start to push you away. So it can be painful. So it's important to, as much as you can, allow this process. As difficult as it is, try not to give advice. I think you build a better relationship by getting curious and engaging them in meaningful conversations. So even telling stories about you and what you got up to, achievements and failures, and why you made decisions that you made and regrets you have. I think that's a much better way to engage with teenagers than telling them what they should do and how they should do it. It can be really helpful to look back on your own experience of being a teenager. What do you remember? What did you need from your parents? What were you looking for from friends? How did you differentiate yourself and make yourself unique? And how did you become your own person? And what would have been supportive for you back then? Because the paradox is that teenagers desperately need to belong and feel like they fit in. This is where they kind of are really prone to peer pressure.
Yeah.
And because they need to belong. They also need to believe that they have some inherent value and that they can create a life of meaning and worth for themselves. So it feels like a constant kind of process of pushing you away but needing you close. Yeah. So what can you do? You can build a relationship with your teen by being interested in them. Be curious about their quirks and things that they love. And as much as possible, shelve your judgments or any suggestions, because this can shut them down. If you can, just be open and listen. Like I think of me, Jack went through a gaming.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And just looking at that screen, I had to really.
Me too.
But I tried to just let him kind of talk me through what he was doing, just a little bit of me being interested.
Yeah.
Something else that's important is to teach them to believe in themselves and to follow their passion, to share stories of them, of your own triumphs and struggles and your regrets for not backing yourself or not following your passion or your dreams. Really important that we keep an eye on our own self-talk Do you often put yourself down or doubt yourself? Because again, they model their behavior off what we do. So as much as you can, model behavior that supports you and is self-affirming. Remind your teen that they have a lifetime to find themselves and to choose a career or a way to make a difference in the world. Many amazing people flunked school and still created amazing lives for themselves. My daughter the other day, she's 17, 18 in December, said to me, Mum, I've just got to work myself out. I was like, Evie.
My daughter says that to me at 20, and it really upsets her that she doesn't understand herself in the world and her place in the world.
Totally. And I said to Eva, it takes a lifetime.
Yes.
We have a lifetime to work out who we are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we were the same. My husband was like, she's gone off and travelled several times. And my husband was like, I didn't even leave the country until I was, like much older than you are now.
Yeah.
So there's no pressure to do all of these things so quickly.
Yes. And I think this is
like,
it again,
that
social media.
Totally. Yeah, that's
and what
it.
They
see all these other people living these so-called amazing lives.
Yes. With their shit together.
Totally, which, are veiled under some, pretty thin filters, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe not so thin for them, but for me, they're pretty thin. Yeah. And then they think that they're somewhat inferior.
Should be doing the same.
Exactly. They're somewhat inferior to this person that literally has really great editing skills.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
And has hired this car and this house. And
exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy. So something else is to notice our own behaviour. Are you putting unnecessary pressure and expectations on your teen? And to get curious about whether you're happy in your own life or are you trying to succeed through your teen. Allow your teen to stand up for themselves and their differences. However, teach your teen to communicate responsibly and respectfully. So it is normal to butt heads, but you'll do them more of a long-term favour if you teach them how to communicate respectfully. So you can have a difference and still kind of hold your own without annihilating or being rude or or not engaging at all. Remind them gently that they're teens. They need to take into account other people's needs as well. My teenagers still think the world revolves around them. Remind your teen that everyone is accountable for their actions and their words and that everything they do has consequences. So important. They're learning to drive, they're exposed to drugs, alcohol, sex. They so need to know that choices they make can impact them for a lifetime.
Yes.
And that, life is to be lived to the full and to be really enjoyed, but they do need to think through.
They need to understand consequences always.
Totally.
Because there are consequences, like you said, with all of those things. I know the first thing I told my kids when they were learning to drive was, you have other people's lives in your hands.
Yes. Yeah.
Not just the people in the car and your own, but everyone that's on the road, the pedestrians, the cyclists, the other drivers. So, it's a huge responsibility.
Remind them regularly to trust their gut and that they can always call you or tell you anything. This is so important. I want my kids to know I don't care what time of the day or night it is, they can call me. And to build this has meant that we've had conversations about drugs and sex and I guess my husband and I, we haven't reacted. I know that it's a part of being a teenager to try different things. We've said there's ramifications for trying different things and what we'd prefer they did and didn't do. But to me, just saying, no, you can't do it, shuts down the door to them possibly coming to you when they need help.
Yes, definitely.
And I want them to come to me when they need help.
I can remember reading a book actually as a teenager, and the story went that, it was an American book. And obviously they're not supposed to drink until they're 21, and this person was blind drunk, and that meant that their friend drove home who'd also been drinking because they were too afraid to reach out to the parents. And I always remembered that scene in that book where, there was a tragedy that occurred and thinking, okay, I can never allow my kids to get to that point where they can't call me no matter what has happened.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, it's a fine balance because you also don't want to condone certain behaviours and things. You don't want to say it's okay.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to perhaps drugs and,
definitely.
you know, but that it is a fine line.
It's funny. I know with my kids, they know my stance on drugs.
Yes.
And like I'm not okay with any of it, but they also know they can call me.
Yes.
And kind of we've had that, I don't know, we've kind of set that up.
Of course. It's that push-pull again, isn't it?
Yeah. And that kind of, you're going to make your own choices. I have no control over that.
But this is my opinion on this.
Yeah. And still call me.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
And I think if they do call you, like I think of me when I was a kid and my dad picking me up from a party, and a friend of mine was really drunk and vomited all over the back seat of the car. And I just think my dad he didn't say anything.
Yeah.
You know, he never was like, gosh, I told you so.
Totally.
So again, that not lecturing them.
No,
just
we've
being
had exactly the same situation.
Supportive adult that's kind of there. I've got
I
your
actually
back.
felt honoured that I was the person that was called. To help in the situation. So it made me feel like I'd done something right as a parent.
Great. Start to encourage your teen's opinion and treat them as an equal being. I think this is important. They're stepping into adulthood.
Yes.
And for me, I say to my kids, you know, you're starting to make adult decisions.
Yeah.
So we can talk about adult things, and also you need to start acting like an adult.
Yeah.
But resist talking down to them or babying them. You're wanting them to be responsible, so practice letting go in small ways, kind of trusting them and testing the waters with the less risky things.
Yes.
You know? I think it's really important to discuss big topics like sex, drugs, fast cars, body image, suicide, and peer pressure, and kind of thrash out ways to work through challenges with them. So we've spoken about what do they do if a friend comes to them and says, I want to die by suicide. So it's, for me, I want them to be prepared.
Equipped,
Yeah, totally. I've shared my own experiences, and I'm pretty real with them about what hurts me when I was their age and how I dealt with things and kind of what I did that was great and what I did that wasn't so great. I think it's important to also share what you need from them, how you need them to show you that they can be responsible and trustworthy, and that, you know, you want to know where they are just so that you know they're safe.
Yes.
It's not about control. It's about being able to keep, you know, to get them if they need in an urgent situation. I think it's really huge to surround your teenager with other healthy adults, because like I have amazing different friends and aunties and uncles that I know Eva and Jack have asked different questions of that they didn't feel they could ask me, and I really love that.
Definitely.
Or when I've been worried about one of them and I've been able to say to a friend, hey, can you just check in? Yeah. It's been really nice, and nice for my kids to know, oh, they care about me.
Someone else that cares,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with your teen, it's important to kind of not shrink away from conflict. And we still need to set firm, clear boundaries. So yes, you can be different. Yes, you can do your own thing. And we still need to live in a house together. And I kind of will say to my kids, you know, like, when you move out of here, your flatmates aren't going to tolerate having 3 towels on the floor and your clothes. And so it's kind of, it's not trying to be their friend. Yeah. It's not kind of being the lecturer. It's finding this middle ground where you're their parent, you're open to conversations, but you're able to hold firm, clear boundaries. Not easy. Firm, clear boundaries, though, make teenagers feel safe and secure. When they don't have firm, clear boundaries, it means they may need to negotiate territory, but that they're not quite ready for. Yeah. Teenagers always think they are way more progressed than they are.
Oh, yeah.
And because of the hormones flooding through their system, their capacity to make rational decisions hugely decreases. So that's where, for me, communication, talking through different scenarios, giving them ideas of what they can do in different times without lecturing them is really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's it. Just remembering you're preparing them for the real world.
Yes.
You're preparing them for when you're not there.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they're out at a club and someone offers them something, or they're on the way home from a party and the driver's drunk, or
absolutely,
they've had
talking
too many
through
drinks
scenarios
and
is important.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jane.
Thanks.